Hello and welcome to a new day 365, my channel on addiction, relapse, and recovery. My name is Jim, and this is my story on how meth almost killed me. So, I've been at the treatment center about 2 weeks now. I'm about 3 weeks sober, and I'm feeling much better. As part of the program here, I am required to write a thorough step one. Step one, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. And so its purpose is to drive home why I'm powerless over my drug addiction and how it makes my life unmanageable. As a drug addict, I don't always see those things, and it can be hard to come to terms with it, like, because I live in such denial, right? That's how I keep my drug addiction going. It just makes it easier to enable myself to keep using drugs and to keep destroying my life. So I'm going to share with you just part of what I've written. And it was about my hospital stay last month, right? It's fresh in my mind. And it's a little lengthy, but I just want to share with you that memory, at least how I remember it to have taken place, right? Because there's no doubt in my mind that crystal meth could have killed me. It could have taken me out. It was my wake-up call. So let me share. Most recently, in April of this year, I had horrible gas pains and couldn't poop or puke, so I knew it wasn't just a stomach bug. Eventually, the pressure became too much, my stomach too bloated, and the pain excruciating. I finally called an ambulance, and then in brackets, I don't like doctors or hospitals. It was a last resort. I instinctively knew something was not right. 911 told me they weren't sending in an ambulance for my stomach pain, so they patched me through to the telehealth or something. I spoke with an RN on the phone. She told me to call 911 again. I couldn't walk at this point. The pain was too much. With some arguing with the 911 dispatcher or whoever, they finally sent an ambulance. This was after a meth binge, this whole incident, so I'm pretty sure I had slept, like, before the pain started. So I get to the hospital, they dicked around some, they were fucking useless. I managed to puke all over the emergency department floor, which of course pissed them off, but gave me some measure of relieving some of the pressure off my other organs and my stomach. They give me a bowl or something to puke in. I ignored it and kept throwing up on their floor. Fuck them. I'm pretty sure they shot me up with a painkiller, because next thing I know, I'm waking up with no pain that I could feel. There was a doctor present at this point, again, useless. I heard her say, I was talking to the police and they have his phone tapped. It was actually said, and that wasn't in my head, but I can't be certain they were speaking about me. So I said, they tapped my phone, huh? Coming out of a sleep or a blackness. She said, I'm not talking about you. I said, bullshit. Then she asked something about the pain. I said I couldn't feel anything. Again, painkillers. The doctor told me I could go. This was the same night. They did nothing to help me. I asked her, do you think it was food poisoning or something? She replied, that's as good a guess as any. For fuck's sakes. So I went home. I hadn't yet tied meth use into the equation, although the signs had been there the last couple months at least. I had a very uncomfortable and broken sleep that night. The next day I still knew something wasn't right. I could still tell I was blocked and I was still feeling bloated, so I went back to the hospital. Thank God the shift change already took place. It was a completely different crew in the ER. The new doctor had the sense to give me a CT scan where they discovered a blockage in my intestine. They didn't know what was causing it, but they at least admitted me in as a patient and gave me an emergency exploratory surgery the next day. So they went in with a camera, 2 small puncture holes, no big deal, to have a look at my stomach. Anyway, when I woke up from the procedure, they said my intestine just unbinded itself. They couldn't explain it, so I asked, could it be the meth? And since it unbinded itself, is it possible it could bind itself up again? The response to both questions was not likely. Fucking lab coat dummies. They released me from the hospital the next day. I was there 2 whole days. I used meth that night. I probably stayed awake for 2 days straight without food or water or going to the bathroom. When I sobered up again, or at least came back down, I could feel I was blocked. It wasn't painful yet, but I knew that was coming. I went back to the hospital. Something was wrong. It was in the evening. I walked into Emerge. I told them I was just here 2 days ago for emergency exploratory surgery. I have the same symptoms I was experiencing 2 days before. The fact that I used after having surgery the first time screams unmanageability. They brought me back in, another CT scan, intestinal blockage. Not likely it would happen again. Doctors is so smart. Whatever. For the most part, they probably meant well. Or is it just egos playing God? I don't know. They admitted me straight away. By the time I seen the doctors, though, the pain again was becoming unbearable. Before they got me to my room, they inserted an NG tube while I was conscious, mind you. Not a nice experience. It's a tube that ran through my nose and down my throat into my stomach. The first hose had an inner diameter of probably a 1/4 inch. It suffocated me while the nurse tried to insert it. I pulled the fucker out. It was too big to try and swallow and breathe at the same time. The nurse gave up. The next nurse used a size smaller, and that we managed to get in while I swallowed water to make the process easier. The NG tube was connected to a pump, and this became the means of how I was to empty the contents of my stomach for the next 13 days. I had intestinal blockage. My intestines shut down. They just stopped working. That was the 3rd visit in 5 days. The next morning, my exploratory surgery, this was more invasive. This time they cut me open, about an 8-inch incision starting below my belly button and up halfway to my rib cage, or sternum, whatever it's called. I came out of that anesthetic real fast and angry. I was not nice to my attending nurse. I was scared, confused, dazed, and I felt violated. Again, the doctors were clueless. They couldn't understand why I had a blockage. I had no previous surgeries. They could find no reason for the blockage, and that was scary. They cut me open, manhandled my intestines, which they told me can cause temporary paralysis of the bowels. Found nothing except for some scarring, which dumbfounded them even more. Someone my age with no previous abdominal surgery should not have scarring on his intestines. Their words. This introduced me to a new level of fear I have never known. At this point, I thought maybe my body was shutting down, and I knew without doubt the bowel. Hold on, I fucked up. And I knew without doubt it was the meth use that caused the bowel failure. I believed in this moment. I truly thought I was dying. I was scared and alone. I had no family come to see me. 2 people from my AA home group did, bless them. They snuck me in pop, sour worms, and nicotine. Real friends. More than I deserved. Other than that, I was alone. So I sat in hospital with my NG tube for the next 12 days, not being able to eat or drink water. Nothing would move south of my stomach. I could pee though. They allowed me ice chips to keep my mouth wet. I forgot to mention the triage nurse when I first came in, checking the marks on my hands and arms for track marks. I saw him eyeing them and made sure he knew they were from the IV administered on my previous visit. Just 2 days earlier, he said, "Oh, you caught me." Fucking asshole. I never hid my drug use from the so-called healthcare professionals. I needed them to know this so they could consider all possibilities. Again, when I brought this up and suggested possibly my drug use could have caused this, it was shrugged off. Pompous textbook jockeys. I watched this NG tube pump this black bile from my stomach for 13 days. Ice chips they gave me, I sucked on those things all day. I refused to let nurses bathe me. I was doing this on my own. I watched and learned how they connected and disconnected the IV lines. Anything I could do myself, I did. They isolated me after a day or 2. They told me I was in contact with someone in ER who had a confirmed case of measles. They give me a self-administered drip of hydromorph, which I could use every 5 minutes. I refused it at first. I told them I was an addict. I didn't want it until they isolated me. Then I said fuck it and hit that baby every chance I could. No food, no water, stuck in bed with tubes connected to both arms and down my throat. Because of my intravenous drug use, every time they had to put in a new IV line was an excruciating and chorful event. They had difficulty finding good veins. This was my fault, without question. I don't hold that against them. By day 11 or 12, with no food or drink, I was getting desperate. All other blood work came back normal. I wasn't dying. But if my bowels didn't start working soon, they might have to consider other options, like possibly cutting out a length of intestine, with the possibility of me shitting into a bag for the rest of my life. Fuck that noise. First, I took myself for a walk and bought a coffee and a donut. I was hungry and I thought maybe the coffee would work as a laxative. Swallowing the donut with a plastic hose down my throat into my stomach was difficult and I almost choked. It was interesting watching the brown liquid that at least tasted good, and the chocolate cake substance exit my nose through the tube and into the reservoir that held my stomach contents. Needless to say, the coffee didn't work. I kept brainstorming since their only solution seemed to be more invasive procedures. Soon I remembered all those times in the years previous when all I needed to do was confirm with the dealer I could come and get some product, and I would instantly need to poop. So I made a phone call. I used that night in hospital. I mixed it with water, and because I watched the nurses flush my IV line with saline and such, I knew how to do my dope. I disconnected the line, which kept me hydrated. I administered my meth in the convenient line they already had directly connected to my arm, and a few hours later, my first bowel movement in 2 weeks. The same dope that betrayed me and scared the shit out of me jump-started my intestines again. But I didn't let that fool me. I remember the previous 2 weeks. I know it was dope that caused my bowels to fail. I remember the fear of dying and every agonizing moment I spent in that death factory. Meth didn't save me. It almost killed me. And that's what I remember about using meth. I just did what I knew worked before. Don't get it twisted. Meth is not my savior. It isn't my friend. It's the trickster. It was my demon. The parasite that wouldn't loosen its grip on my soul. Its final deceitful trickery was to fool me into thinking it helped me get out of an unbearable situation. I wasn't fooled this time. I think I was at a hospital a day and a half later. The dealer brought me so much dope. I think I flushed at least an 8-ball. And still, like the greedy addict I am, I saved a little just in case. Probably almost 2 grams. And used a little more. Once I pooped again, I thought I was probably okay. Oh yeah, they gave me food the next day too. I was too high to remain in hospital though. I unhooked all my IV wires, I got dressed, and I left the hospital at 3 in the morning. I went to my own bed in my own room and tweaked out for the next 8 hours or so. I still had over a gram of dope. I called a guy, I sold it to him for $20. I went straight to detox and sat there for 8 or 9 days until the morning I came into treatment. And that was my story about how meth almost killed me. Thanks for watching. Love you guys. Take care.